I'm getting ready to go live. I think yes, we're here. There we are. Let me turn that countdown timer off. So this happens occasionally. You have technical issues. We had a few. We worked them out. Everything's good. Look who we have here again for the, 12th time, 15th time, something like that, right?
That's right. Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here. Thanks, Richard.
Absolutely. Terri Morgan down here. I'm pointing to it. It's backwards for me. And then over here, I got to twist my arm. We have Chris Damaris, both of them from luma-touch.com. But we're going to talk about, I guess LumaFusion is your main product. Is that your only product?
Yeah, we actually decided to remove Luma Effects from the App Store just to simplify things, since LumaFusion is our primary product, and it was
okay.
So yeah. At the moment, that's our only product.
Well, that's what I care about, of course. That and a few other issues. I was very curious. We're going to talk about something happened the last week or so.
Yes,
I'm curious. I'm curious how that happened. We'll talk about that in a minute. Well, let's talk about it now. So, Tim Cook called you up like he was drunk one night and called you up at midnight and said, "Hey, you guys are going to be iPad App of the Year."
Yeah.
How did?
Yeah, it was pretty cool. So they don't tell you. There's no negotiation about it, or, they don't tell you you're going to be App of the Year, but they do send you a lot of emails requesting you to do, jump through certain hoops, like, okay,
really?
Write a 3-minute script, but do this, do that. And you're kind of like, okay, something's up, but they won't tell you what it is.
Yeah, we knew we were going to be featured in some way. Yeah.
Yeah, you think, like, we thought, okay, we're going to be featured somehow, because that often they like you to prepare for things, or make them slide decks or videos or whatever to support what they're doing for you. But this time, about a week before, they had sent a box by in-person delivery from an Apple employee, and the box said, "Do not open until further notice." So. And she said when she dropped it off, yeah.
I never got one of those.
Congratulations. And I was like, oh, I don't know what's in the box, but thank you. And then later that day, we found out that we were going to be App of the Year, and that was super exciting.
What was in the box?
On a call with Tim Cook, which was really exciting. We have a nice class picture of all the winners, and that was really exciting.
Yeah.
What was in the box?
So the award is right there on the shelf.
Oh, it was actually the award.
Yeah.
Yes, it's a heavy piece of metal. Which, if you don't mind, I'll go get it. And I'll show you.
Absolutely. You tell me about the box. I'm like, what's in the box? I'm going to see what's in the box.
Yeah. So this is heavier than it looks. It's like,
it looks pretty heavy.
The size of a heavy dog. I don't know. I haven't weighed it, but it's probably 15 pounds or something. And it's on the back. It says LumaFusion iPad App of the Year in LumaFusion 2021, and so it's pretty cool. It's got a little piece of felt on the bottom, so it sits nice. It
is absolutely very cool. Let me put that back. I had that set up wrong. It's very cool. No, it's absolutely very cool. I'm a little jealous, to be honest with you.
I'm jealous too. I mean, Richard, I have been at so many companies and worked for so many products. And in truth, I've always been the underdog. Like, every product has either not quite been the top product, or it's, right. I get to the company like a little bit past its prime. And so I almost feel like undeserving of this, because I'm used to being the underdog. Like, I feel a little bit undeserving of this. And, but yet at the same time, when you're the underdog, you work your butt off to try to get somewhere. And so at the same time, I feel like Chris and I and the whole team, both teams, have really put a lot of effort into this. So I do feel like I'm really excited.
Well, when when you were on, when they had the Apple event, was it last spring?
Yeah.
When you were featured so many times, like 6 times, right?
Yeah,
It's like,
exactly.
that's
Yeah.
kind of a hint that something's,
Yeah. Well, we knew they liked us for that, and we were a good fit for the iPad Pro as far as showing off, the advanced features there. So, that was exciting. But, still, honestly, there are so many incredible apps out there that it was pretty amazing to get this honor. It's, not that I don't think we don't deserve it, but it's just still pretty amazing,
Well, no, it's that. I know exactly what you mean. It absolutely is. It's absolutely amazing. And the way that they let you know by sending you that package is really cool.
It
It really is.
cool.
It really is cool. It's very cool. So,
And they made sure I was in the office by telling me we're delivering some marketing materials. So be in the office at this time. So because marketing materials, I was like, well, okay, that's weird, but maybe it's just a FedEx delivery or whatever.
right.
But then, it was an actual person from Apple.
So, and when could you open it up? When they made the announcement?
Yeah, they got us on a call. Go ahead, Chris.
It was before the announcement. It was on a special call with all of the App Store winners, and and so they said, okay, it's time to open it up, and everybody got to open theirs, and then I got to talk a little bit about it. It was really exciting.
Yeah. We each got a chance to talk to Tim Cook, which was cool. Maybe we spent 5 minutes telling him about us, and he had said he thought it was really cool that we were democratizing video editing, and I think that is what Apple was interested in, is the fact that the device iPad plus LumaFusion is really allowing more people around the world to do something that not only are they telling their stories, but a lot of people are being able to make careers that they couldn't have made with more expensive, setups. So
Oh yeah,
they were
absolutely.
pretty excited about that.
Well, I got this set up. This is like $5,000. This is the new MacBook Pro. So the iPad makes it much more accessible.
That's right.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, it does. I mean, and there's people, I think in the Apple story, they had interviewed us once before they gave us the award, and we didn't really know why they were interviewing us, but I had mentioned my son using the LumaFusion to edit with, and he actually trained himself how to do it. So, it was on my iPad. So when he went to play with all the stuff on my iPad, he found LumaFusion, said, how do you do this? And I showed him how to drag a clip down to the timeline, and everything else he figured out on his own. And he was 7 at the time.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
7?
Yeah. Now he's making these great little stop motions. He gets out his clay, and and Chris's daughter had done that as well. Before we even released LumaFusion, she was using it to do stop motion with. So.
Yeah, she was one of our early testers.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
So one of the things that I absolutely love about LumaFusion and the iPad is using it with an Apple Pencil.
Yeah, a lot of our users just swear by that. Oddly enough, I really like just with the finger, but it really does add a certain level of accuracy and a different feel to it that I think is a lot of fun.
Yeah, because my fingers are a little bit big. I much rather the pencil. I mean, sometimes if I don't have it, of course you can use it.
Yeah.
So I'm a direct. I love the direct, but I have smaller fingers. I'm assuming, maybe not. My hands are kind of big, but I like just the reaching out to touch something is like and it's like playing the piano with your fingers rather than with chopsticks or something. So I love that.
No, I understand.
Knobby Dick.
I understand. There's a local guitar player, a legend from Washington D.C., and my band used to play with his band, and his name is Danny Gatton. And every time I'd see him, I'd look at his hands, and his fingers were short and stubby. And I said, how in the world does this guy play guitar so brilliantly with those fingers, but that's the same kind of thing. It was just a touch with the fingers that magical guitar player.
Was that your music on the open that we were listening to?
Yeah, that's my band.
Wow.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah, because you know what? One of the things about broadcasting on YouTube, I don't care what music I put on. It's not my music, there's copyright issues.
Right. Yeah.
right.
And it's like, wait a minute, this is original music by somebody else, but they said, no, they copied a certain part of the melody. What are you going to do? I mean, it's just like, okay, I'm putting my music up. Now you can't strike because I can fight
That's
it.
right.
So
I mean, you have the skill to do that. Nobody would want to listen to music I make. I'm pretty sure of that.
So one of the things I wanted to talk about, and I've been teasing it all week, because this is the Final Cut Pro crowd. This is a combination of Final Cut Pro crowd and the LumaFusion crowd, both. So one of the things I've been teasing about is the enhanced magnetic timeline.
I love our timeline, I have to say.
No, let's talk
Yeah.
about that. Why is it enhanced from just the regular magnetic timeline?
Well, the regular magnetic timeline is great, but it really wants you to work in a certain way that ignores tracks and use auditioning and other things to, put your timeline together. But in LumaFusion, and quite frankly, it's hard to come up with a model that just works where things can stay linked and keep in sync as you move things earlier, but also be able to be track based, be able to be insert, overwrite. And so the model that we worked really hard at coming up with is a combination of track based editing and magnetic timeline. So that you can do either or both, or combine them however you want. So there's 4 things you have to learn in LumaFusion, then you're like a master. So you have your clip linking, whether you've linked clips or not, and you have insert, overwrite, and I think it's only 3 actually. And then you can use the whole thing and keep your timeline in sync and do whatever you want. So it's really cool.
No, I agree.
Like the best feature.
I absolutely agree. One of the things you can do, there's a lot of things you can do with your timeline that you can't do in Final Cut. And since I go back and forth between Logic and Final Cut all the time, I don't mind the tracks in Logic. I prefer tracks for 24 tracks of audio rather than clips all over the place. I know you can put them in rolls and all that, but I like audio in tracks, to be honest. And the other thing is that both LumaFusion has and Logic has a scrolling timeline. So you can see the waveform under the playhead at any given point. The playhead's not scrolling off the screen somewhere. Goodbye. Somewhere off the screen. I don't understand why it does that to this day, but so
it takes a lot of processing to move all that graphics on the screen. Yeah, so I think most timelines just let the playhead move and then it jumps and then playhead moves. But we don't have that choice in touch interface because you can't touch off the screen, or you can't touch too close to the edge, so we have to keep the action in the middle. Right.
No, I understand. Go ahead.
I think a lot of the innovations in LumaFusion honestly came from some of the limitations of the iPad platform originally. It's grown immensely since then, and a lot of those limitations have gone away. But at least initially, we had to work within those limits and find creative ways to work around them, and I think that really made a difference.
So that's interesting that you said that part of the thing with LumaFusion was limitations of the iPad. You worked within those limitations.
Yeah, absolutely. Because, it changes how you have to look at things when you have to think of how do we get media in and out? How do we do an interface that, we can't move, the time cursor. So we have to move the timeline and those kind of things just sort of come naturally. And you think, okay, what's the best way to handle this with what we've got? And often you come up with something that's better than you've had in the past. And I think that we did that a lot in LumaFusion. A lot of that was, some of the precursor to that was iMovie came up with a few of those ideas, and then we took it to the next level. And I think that's a lot of fun.
No, it absolutely is.
One great example of that is, in the beginning, iPad didn't have menus. So I know from my experience of working on desktop, designing for desktop, is that the easiest thing to do if you can't figure out where to put a feature is to stick it in a menu, because then you've delivered the feature, but we couldn't do that. So every feature we were rethinking, is this the right way? How can we get this feature delivered in a way that people will find it without a label, without a menu, and be able to understand how to use it without those sort of crutches. And it just forced us to do better design.
Well, yeah, absolutely. The design is, on the iPad especially, I'm still not sure, how do people edit on an iPhone? I know they do. So how many of your users do use an iPhone versus an iPad? Do you have any kind of a breakdown?
Yeah, we do. It's about 40% of our users are on iPhones, and that's pretty amazing. I will edit on the iPhone when necessary, but I certainly like the additional space on the iPad. But yeah, we have a large number of users who shoot, edit, and upload right off their iPhone, and that's pretty amazing too. I think the younger generation is better at that, to be honest.
Yeah.
Right.
And by project, so one thing that I think is fun is you're at an event, just a personal event, and you're shooting the people at the event, and maybe it's a party or whatever. And during the party, you can put together a nice little video and deliver it to people in the party, just without it. And people are just like, wow, how did that all come? And you're just on your phone. It's kind of really fun. It just turns editing into something that's interactive rather than an afterthought or something that's going to happen separated from the event.
So one of the things, I got the new one, the iPhone 13 Pro Max. I get the best one every year as long as they update the video. And of course, the 13 Pro Max is a big, big update. But one of the things they absolutely have to change next year is they got to give this thing a USB-C port. This Thunderbolt port is killing me. I mean, the Lightning port is killing me with the speed. I got the 1 terabyte. I had the 512 last year, and getting media off here is a speed challenge.
Yeah.
And then what did they do? They added ProRes. ProRes, which you get, I don't know, I get on 1 terabyte, I might get 30 minutes. I don't know how much it is. It's just 6 gigabytes a minute in 4K, I think it is. So they have to give us a USB-C port on this. They have it on the big large iPad, right? The iPad Pro and the iPad Mini now, USB-C ports.
Yeah. Most, and the iPad Air even. So so they've really gone to it on the iPad side, except for the base iPad. And I do think, I wouldn't be surprised to see that coming. That's it. It may, specifically with ProRes, that makes a heck of a lot of sense. Files are getting bigger and it's taking longer. And I would love to see,
and there's a lot of
I would love to see users be able to plug in, the USB-C directly to the iPad and just treat that like a drive to quickly get things over. Would be incredibly cool.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So this is an interesting question. Will you expand your app in order to enter in the live multi-camera delivery? I guess like this doing.
I wouldn't say that's on our horizon. Good to see you. It's not on our horizon at the moment. Our focus will be on a great multicam editing experience. Not to discount it for the farther future, but it's not what we're looking at the moment. That takes a different set of features and frankly skills and technology that is out of our current expertise, and so we would definitely have to build that up before we went that direction.
One of the things that as a matter of fact, I made a suggestion to make suggestions to camera app makers all the time, and one of the things I made for Filmic Pro, I don't know if they've ever heard it before or not, but I'd love if you could take Filmic Pro live, like to Facebook or YouTube, because I like their camera app, but I can't use it when I go live.
Right.
I think they have, they actually have a module for that now. I'll have to look into that, but I did ask them about that maybe 3 or 4 months ago, and they said, oh yeah, there is a way to do that. So Richard, I'm sorry I can't tell you what it is, but I'll get back to you.
Well, if you plug your phone into a Mac, you can use it that way. But I'm talking about directly from the phone itself. So
Yeah, I thought there was. Well, so speaking of though, with the live for LumaFusion, Francesco's question, we will be able to import I an ISO file from a Shogun 7, I believe.
Yeah, the
So
Shogun 7 has the feature, to be able to capture all the streams, and it actually creates an FCP XML of all the cuts you've done there, and we'll be able to import that as a multicam, clip ready to work with and edit.
So yeah. So let's talk about this multicam on the iPad. How many tracks can we presently do?
Well, normal video on the timeline, you can do 6 tracks. We are making it so that the multicam will allow 12 tracks to be switched between.
That's impossible. I can't even do that on my MacBook Pro. How in the world? You've got some magic happening there, and that's you can do a multicam 12 tracks.
Yes.
Presently.
Yeah.
Well, that's what we're doing in beta. Yeah.
In beta.
It's not, the multicam feature is not released yet. We basically, after we showed it at the keynote, we did some work on it and realized it needed something different. It's one of those features, like we've done with many things, where we've sort of gone back to the drawing board and said, how do we make it better than what we initially came up with? And that's what we're working on right now. So we're hoping to release it soon. I know we'd all like to have it out right now.
Yeah, we would. And I can tell you that's not the most popular thing when I come to Chris and say, I know we've already developed this, but I made a mistake. It needs to be different.
No, of course. Of course.
That's what we do. That's our job, to, work at it until we get it right. So yeah.
Okay, so you got the Apple iPad of the Year, iPad App of the Year award directly from Tim Cook. He called you guys personally. You have 12 tracks on multicam coming at some point. It's in beta right now. What else is happening in the future development?
Well, we also, one thing that I think is interesting is we've always been compared to other iPad apps or other mobile apps. And we've also just won the best enthusiast editing software period from VideoMaker, which, I've been reading VideoMaker since 1986 when it came out. So
Right.
That's a huge honor. But I think what's most interesting about it is that it didn't say on mobile. It just said the best enthusiast video editing software. So it's like, that's a huge distinction for me as an individual who's been reading that magazine, like to get to a point in my career where I've made something that they say is good. But they also don't qualify it as just being mobile. So I thought that was great. I'm really proud of that.
Yes, you should be. As a matter of fact, I have it. Let me see. Do I have it here? Oh, they put up an ad. I saw that. I saw that ad, that article. Let me see if I can pull it up here. Graphics video. Here we go. So here it is. VideoMaker, Best Products of 2021.
Yeah. We're down there somewhere.
No, yeah,
Got
because
all
you're
sorts of stuff.
these pop-up ads. Here we go.
Yeah.
MacBook Pro, of course. There's the
A little
Field
bit down
monitor.
farther, yeah.
Here, keep going, keep going. Where
Oh,
did
we
it go?
must have missed it. It's in there.
Oh, best. Let's see, audio.
It's audio editing. Enthusiast editing
There we
software. They don't
go.
have a picture of it. That's why. Yeah.
They don't have a picture. What's wrong with those people?
No.
Graphically,
no,
everything is.
Yeah. But also, as well as multicam, to answer your question, we do have keyframing. We already have keyframing, but this is keyframe easing and curves. So you'll be able to, move an object, have it nicely curve the way you want, and also come to the speed of stop and go that you want. And we have waveform vector scopes and histograms coming to the color and effects editor. We have
Subtitling.
subtitling. So you'll be able to bring in a subtitle file, lay it on your timeline, see the subtitles, and then have multiple languages of those, and then be able to modify the way they look and so on, and then export it either as metadata or as an burnt-in subtitle. So that's coming as well.
So you have the option of just doing it for like a QuickTime file or burned in.
Right. Yep.
That's really nice.
So if it was just metadata, then your player would choose the language and be able to select the subtitles from that. And that obviously has less, capability as far as showing different fonts and whatever. But if you're really doing something that's a permanent thing that you want to have the fonts a certain way, then you can do that as well. So thank you, Tay. That's nice.
Yeah. We have a question from Eric Emmerich. Are you adding any more file formats to support? Doesn't like my XAVC coming from my Canon, blah, blah, blah. So Final Cut doesn't like some of these formats either.
Right. So that's one place where we're at the, a little bit at the mercy of Apple, so because we've decided to build LumaFusion on Apple's frameworks, we get a lot of the advantages that they have, which is the tight integration, the great performance, but we pretty much have to wait for them to support a new format unless we transcode it, which we've talked about doing that. And that may be something we do in the future, but for now we've kept it where we just, the formats that Apple supports, we fully support. And, though interestingly, I wouldn't necessarily be surprised to see that support coming in the near future because of the M1 chip and some of the back and forth between Mac and iPad. Apple could easily bring their Pro formats over to iPad, and so I don't know if they'll do it, but it's certainly possible, and we'll certainly keep an eye out for it. But I wouldn't expect that in the immediate future, honestly.
I mean, I think the good thing is if it comes out, then we get it not necessarily 100% for free, but pretty free.
So you're saying Pro formats, but they brought ProRes over. What if
they brought ProRes, but their Pro formats pack on Mac, has other formats like XAVC, MXF,
I see.
Some of the other formats, which they don't currently support on iPad. I'd love to see those come over. I don't know if it's in Apple's, interest to bring those over and have to support them. So I wouldn't, necessarily expect to see that happen, but ProRes is great to have for sure.
So what about ProRes RAW? Is that ever coming to the iPad? I wonder. I get asked that all the time.
I would expect it. We've actually experimented with some ProRes RAW files, and they sort of work on some devices. So I wouldn't be surprised to see that coming.
So here's one of the questions that I had. Apple announced, when they announced their iPhone 13 in September, they announced that ProRes was coming to the iPhone later this year. And then it comes out on third-party apps before Apple releases it.
Yeah, that was sort of interesting because, they made the API available as soon as, iOS 15 came out. And so we were able to take advantage of it and use it. My guess is that at least as far as the camera app goes, they must have had some, work to make sure it was working perfectly. Apple's good about making sure that what they release is good quality, and maybe they, needed a little more time to bake on that one.
Yeah. I was surprised that it came out, like I said, I'm surprised the third party brought it out like a couple weeks before. And as soon as it came out, I went out, Filmic Pro is Filmic Pro. I went out and started testing it right off the bat. I said, this is great. It's shooting. But here's the thing. I have 1 terabyte of storage space. I am very selective on what I use for ProRes because of the huge file sizes.
Yeah, I would say that's true. And for most users, unless you have a specific need for ProRes, I think HEVC gives you a really incredible quality, for much smaller size, and would be what most people should use. But the nice thing is now it just opens up opportunities for workflows that we weren't able to support before, and that's really nice for us.
Right. Now, I don't know the answer to this question. Does LumaFusion, can you work with the cinematic footage from Final Cut the same way, from the phone, the same way you can in iMovie or Final Cut?
Not currently. They have not made that a public API yet.
Okay.
So we are researching that and looking into seeing if we can, figure out what the format is, but they haven't made that public yet. So at the moment, no. So
when I first heard about that, and I was thinking about it, and I'm thinking, well, this is nice. This is a nice little feature. It's a little, consumery feature. It's much more than that. When you open up those cinematic files in Final Cut, there's like 4 different places you can do adjustments, not just one slider to blur the background. There's a way to focus on different things, and you have a cinematic timeline you can open up, and then there's the viewer controls. It's much more sophisticated than I thought. Now, the curious thing is it's only 30 frames per second. It's not 24. You would think cinematic would be automatically be 24 frames per second, but it's only, at this point, it's 1080p and it's 30 frames per second. So maybe that can be fixed in an update. I don't know how that works.
Yeah,
I mean, it might be that that's more compatible with PAL than 24. 24 and 25 don't work so well together.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. I think, Apple has had a history, like with iMovie, of only supporting 30 frames per second. And I think it's their baseline that they have.
It is.
Yeah, so I think, there shouldn't be any technical reason. My guess is it was a matter of keeping it, simple on a first release to make sure everything works smoothly and you didn't add variables to test. So yeah, I would expect to see that improve, with future iterations.
Well, they have 24 frames with 4K.
Oh.
And they have 24 frames on the phone. They have, as a matter of fact, is it 4K? Their frame rates are really bizarre going through the different codecs. 4K, I think, has the most. I think it has 24, 25, 30, 60. I think that's the one. But some of their other ones they have 30 seems to be the baseline, like you said. Mm-hmm. But you would think, I've heard people say, cinematic, 24 frames per second. That's what people think of, but it's not available yet. But anyway, the cinematic mode in the iPhone 13 Pro and Pro Max is much more usable and useful than I initially thought. So I can't wait till you can get that in LumaFusion and work with those controls.
That would be really nice. I mean, and I wonder, Chris, is there other things we could do with that information? Like, could you add different effects or, color?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Part of that information is segmenting objects within a scene. And so, we could use it to apply effects to certain objects. There's a lot that potentially could be done with that, depending on the data that they store. There's a whole realm that obviously Apple is getting into with machine learning and vision effects that we're also looking into for the future and really hope to take advantage of.
Yeah, absolutely. So when they released, at the Apple event in October, when they released the MacBook Pros, they said that a new version of Final Cut is going to support the couple of things that they're doing, including the cinematic mode. They gave us the tracking feature in 10.6, which is a huge, huge feature on its own. But then they did something they've never done before. They gave us a feature editing the cinematic, which is only available to iPhone 13 users.
Yeah, that's a little different, unique, but I think it was such a big feature for them that they wanted to make sure it was available in all their creative platforms. Yeah.
That's it. Just they've never done that. Restricted it to this iPhone. Put a feature out. You have to have this iPhone in order to use this feature. Now, I don't care personally, but I don't. That's fine with me. But I mean, other people. Yeah, exactly. Other people are like, what are they doing here? So I'm looking forward. Going forward with, Final Cut and LumaFusion. Now, I'm going to ask you the obvious questions. I get asked this all the time. Number one is Final Cut Pro on the iPad. Listen, it doesn't make any sense at this point, okay? They just gave you iPad App of the Year. If they introduce Final Cut Pro on the iPad, imagine how much catching up they'd have to do to get to LumaFusion.
I mean, they have obviously more resources than we do. I wouldn't put it past them to be able to do that and to be able to catch up. So that, they're certainly capable of doing that if they want to do it. I don't know if they want to do it, but I do feel like it's probably inevitable that they will. And I also think that, getting an award from Apple doesn't necessarily mean they're not going to do the same things, that you're doing. I'm sure that the Documents app probably got awards, and now we've got the Files app. So, I think that it doesn't preclude them from competing.
Yeah.
Well, I guess when I said catching up, what I meant was not the features that Final Cut has, because LumaFusion has features that Final Cut does not have, and it has a lot of features that Final Cut doesn't have, and they're features that I like, that I'd like to have.
Yeah, I think we'll always be able to differentiate ourselves, from whatever Apple comes out with or anybody comes out with, and I think that's one of our strengths. Is, I was talking to somebody earlier on about the fact that, one of the early ways we differentiated ourselves was again out of necessity, was providing all different ways of getting media in and out of the app through the Western Digital Wireless Drive and Narbox and everything else that was available at the time, because we didn't have external drives and things like that to work with. But even now that we do, LumaFusion's DNA is all about being able to get media from any device and work with it and get it out to anywhere. And I think that's something we'll always be different, with, and our timeline's different. And obviously we're doing new features that I think we'll do in distinct ways that, we'll always differentiate ourselves. And I think there'll be room for multiple tools in the market, whatever anybody comes out with. If they do something well, that'll be great. That'll be another tool for editors to be able to use. We always hope to be the best of, a wide range of tools, and we'll keep working to do that.
The other question I get asked all the time, what about LumaFusion for the Mac? Now, we've talked about this in prior shows and when you've been on, and I think at one point you were toying with the idea, but then recently you said we really want to concentrate on the iPad because that's really our forte. So
I keep saying that.
Right. I mean,
on the other hand, whether we made a mistake doing it or it was just by fortuitous, we allowed the iPad, app to run on the M1 Max. And in doing so, we realized that it had some limitations there that we didn't like, that we didn't like the way it was running there. So we are working on a better experience for the Mac. And, we don't have a date for that yet, but that's definitely in the works.
Wait a minute. Do you mean a separate app for the Mac, or LumaFusion running better on the Mac?
LumaFusion running better. LumaFusion running better on the Mac. More of a complete Mac experience with LumaFusion.
So if you buy the LumaFusion app for the iPad, you're talking about the same version that you buy for the iPad will run better on the Mac.
Right. Yes. That's
not better than the iPad. There's nothing better than, but
it'll be a more complete Mac experience where it'll use it'll fit all the expectations that people have of software that runs on the Mac. And right now, the iPad version running on the Mac doesn't do all of those things. And so we're working really hard to make sure that the same way we did every interaction as a wonderful touch-based interface on the iPad, we're making sure that every interaction on the Mac feels right for a Macintosh as well.
Is that a separate department in your company, the Mac version?
Well, we're a pretty small company. There's a little overlap. We do have a couple of people dedicated specifically to that right now. They still have to do other things too because we need
of course.
Everywhere. But they are a focused team that's focused primarily on the Mac interface. Yeah.
Well, that's fantastic. Now Apple just has to get a touch MacBook Pro. So we have a touch screen.
I would love that.
Oh, yeah. That would be great.
I still find myself trying to touch my Mac every once in a while.
I do it all the time. I do, especially when there's a QuickTime player up. I'm constantly touching my screen to get that little thing to start playing, and I touch it. What's wrong with the Mac? And of course, it's got to go back down to the touchpad. I've done that multiple times. There's fingerprints on my screen. For what reason? For what reason? But there are. So that's. I have to say, I'm excited about that.
Yeah, I am too. Actually, while I still think, LumaFusion will be a touch-first experience. When I do use it on the Mac, I do enjoy using it. I think it has some advantages there as well. It still has the wonderful design we did of our enhanced magnetic timeline and some of the other features that I do think make it unique and fun on any platform.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So one of the things, there's a couple things about the enhanced magnetic timeline. You can color code clips directly in I love that. the ability to color code clips. You can lock. You can lock clips, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
You can lock tracks.
So clips and tracks.
Well, you can lock tracks, and you can also unlink a clip so that it won't move along with the timeline.
Yeah.
Do you know how many hoops we have to jump through now to do that in Final Cut?
Yes, we do.
That was one of the first things that there's a couple of things. I don't want markers to be attached to clips. I want them to be sequence markers that stay in place where I put them on the timeline. Well, Final Cut Pro, they're actually clip markers.
Yeah.
You can only
both would be great.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
And on LumaFusion, they're only linked to the placement on the timeline, which I think we'd love to add an option where you can choose whether it's a clip marker or a timeline marker. Right,
because if you drag the clip around, the marker goes with it, especially if it's informational. But, a lot of times I'll do a timeline and I want a marker exactly at 1 minute and exactly at 2 minutes and exactly at 3 minutes. So now you have to do a title, whatever, and put the markers in the title track. And the other thing is, a long time ago I developed this, years and years ago. I don't want that title track moving.
Yeah.
So what I do is I put an anchor clip at the beginning of the timeline, a little 10-second clip, a 10-frame clip or a 1-frame clip, and I anchor the title to that anchor clip. So when I do stuff, it stays still. It stays put.
Yeah.
So.
I have workarounds for the fact that we don't have markers that attach to clips either. I again use a title clip and color that clip red so I can find it easily. And then I just drag the titles and they link to the main track clips. So they do move around with the clip. So essentially I'm cheating the system and getting clip markers.
Well, that's what we have to do. I've had to do different things in Final Cut. I remember when Final Cut first came out, 10.0, before it came 10.1, they had projects and events were separate. They had separate, the project was a separate thing, and the event. This is in the Finder. It would create separate, I refuse to do that. So what I do, instead of using projects, it aggravated me so much. Instead of doing projects, I made everything into a compound clip. A compound clip timeline, and I edited all my stuff into compound clip timeline, and it didn't make separate projects. It's just like, why? And of course, at 10.1, they got rid of all that. They made the library, and they combined everything so it was in one folder again.
Yeah, that was confusing there for a little bit. I remember I couldn't get my head around it. And then then it sorted itself out, and it's like, oh yeah, this I can work with now.
You're right.
And it was quite handy.
People still have an issue with some of the nomenclature that Final Cut uses. Project? Project is such a generic term. I use it for other, I got a project. I don't mean a timeline. I mean a project, all encompassing. So I still hear stuff, people. Do anybody complain to you guys? Because I get complaints all the time. I get in my ear, people text me, and why is Final Cut doing this? And why is Final Cut doing that? And where is the dupe detection? And where is why can't we move the markers on the timeline? I get this stuff all the time.
We get lots of feedback from customers for sure, and everyone on our team monitors various sites, and I tend to do Reddit a lot, so I'm the one taking the Reddit questions and monitoring.
Oh, you are?
Yeah, I like that. People are so brash on Reddit. They just say what they mean. There's no mistaking it.
That's the internet, isn't it?
That's good. Yeah.
The internet people are brash, whatever they want to be.
It's okay though. Then I know what they want. They're not, jumbling around. So.
What kind of things have you heard on Reddit that you went, might be something we can explore? What kind of ideas have they told you?
Oh, people come up with So there's two categories or maybe more of things. And one category comes from, I have another editing system that does this way. And so we want you to do it this way. And so my philosophy is you're solving a problem. So instead of saying, I want, for instance, an adjustment track because that solves my problem, I want to hear what the problem is so that we can think about how the problem would best be solved with what we're doing. I don't like looking at other software to design things because it's just lazy for one, but also you're trusting some other company to do your design for you.
Right.
So I'm against that. And so one category of questions is like, can we have what this other app has? And I usually try to get at, well, what's the real problem we're solving? And then the other categories, like there's some brilliant people out there on Reddit and other places that are really looking at what they're trying to achieve, what their project is or their timeline is trying to achieve. And they do come up with some great ideas. And those are things that we always put into our backlog of things we could do. And then we meet on that backlog and discuss, the importance of various things and try to prioritize those things.
You have a backlog?
Oh yeah, a massive backlog.
You're not all done? You're not all finished?
Yeah. We have literally thousands of features that we've had requests for, and not all of them will make it in there, but a lot of them we want to get in there, and so it's just a matter of time and resources to make it all happen. And so if people are patient, we'll just keep adding more and more and get better and better. And we'll try to
it's actually a full-time job. It would be a full-time job just to spend figuring out what's the next thing in the backlog. I mean, we do it as a team, but we honestly could use a full-time person doing that.
Now, you both realize you cannot win iPad App of the Year 2 years in a row.
Yes, well.
Okay?
Well, not unless we have a different app that we can put in there.
Well, yeah, that's true. That's true. But you can't win it if you can't win it for LumaFusion because you have to leave some awards for other people. In the spring, Apple featured you like 6 times in their iPad event, and then now they've given you App of the Year. Now, the App of the Year, is that based on multiple criteria, or is it just numbers or feedback?
It's definitely not just numbers. I think it's Apple's App Store editors, making a decision based on a number of factors. We don't know what the factors are, quite honestly, but we don't think it's just numbers.
It says in the award what they were. I think it was innovation, technology, and design.
Yeah.
Okay. And those are all.
I think they were really interested this year in the pandemic and things that actually helped people make a living or do what they needed to do during the pandemic. And LumaFusion clearly did that. Our sales doubled during the pandemic because people were at home with all their media. Pandemic is pretty serious, and it makes you think about your life, your story, your history, all the things you want to put together. And people did that, obviously, during the pandemic. So.
No, they absolutely did. Now, I have this phone. This is directly to Tim Cook, by the way. So if you have anything anything you want to say, I'll give him a call while we're on the air. Direct.
Did you know when we did we tell you when we got the award we actually got to talk to him?
With everybody, or did you talk?
Yeah, it was a group.
Yeah, with the group. So when they actually, in the private call where they gave all the awards to the developers, we each got a chance to talk to Tim Cook for a couple of minutes.
Wow.
That was a highlight. That was amazing. Yeah.
I want to make sure that Tim knows what Final Cut is. The main thing I want to make sure that that he understands that Final Cut is a good application, and please give it whatever it needs to keep improving. Yeah. So I never met
on the desktop.
No, absolutely. No. there's too many things that you have that if they released a Final Cut version tomorrow, it wouldn't have the things that I like about LumaFusion, a lot of them.
Yeah, it would be different. Yeah.
It would be, yeah. Although,
And you know what? I think, you can have more than one iPad app. Whereas
Absolutely.
like desktop software is complex enough that you probably only want to learn one or use one or afford one. But you can have more than one app for editing now.
Well, wait a minute. A Ford one, Final Cut Pro cost $299 11 years ago. You know, and you guys so far with LumaFusion, it's been the same. There's been all the upgrades you've done. There's been no additional charge. As a matter of fact, the Final Cut Pro XML plugin, the add-on package, that was even on sale for during Christmas, or not Christmas, during Black Friday. And I kept pushing it to people. I kept pushing it. I said, look, if you want to get this, now's the time to get it.
Yeah. And even at that, it's, you know, for most people, not that expensive. If you have Final Cut,
absolutely.
You can probably afford the XML package.
No, absolutely. I have that. That's exactly correct. So I'm at some point, I haven't got an iPad Pro yet, but I want to get one specifically. I would get it just for LumaFusion so I can have the fast storage and connection and all that with the USB-C port. But I'm also interested in the improvements you're going to make to the Mac version, because I now have this MacBook Pro, the M1X. I got this looks silver to you. This is actually space gray. It doesn't look that.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, it looks really light.
It is, but it's space gray. And I looked on my receipt and it says space gray and everything. So I said, "Come on, Apple." So I had
check.
because I looked at it, it looks like it's silver. So I did I ordered it within 5 minutes when they came on. Within the first 5 minutes, it came online. It was like 4 to 6 weeks out at that point. My order was. This was in October, so it was in like November. The morning they went on sale on the App Store, I checked my local app store in Columbia, Maryland, and they had exact model, everything that I wanted in stock. I immediately bought it, reserved an appointment, but I didn't cancel my online order until I had the thing in my hands, because I didn't want to take any chance of being pushed out of line and something happened, I didn't get it. I can't believe it. So I got the M1X, 32 core GPU, 10 core CPU, 64 gigabytes of unified memory, and a 4 terabyte drive, and they had it in stock.
That's impressive.
They had it in stock.
That's great.
Yeah.
I thought the high-end one wouldn't be in stock, but they had it. I went to Columbia.
They probably had one, and you got it.
Well, that's okay. That's fine with me. So I did my first video on my MacBook Pro, and it was me going to the Apple Store to pick up my MacBook Pro. That's what it was. I filmed the whole way there, and I filmed in the store, and you know. So the Apple Store in Columbia is not like a store would be like in LA or something where there's more video professionals. It's more generic iPhones, iPads and stuff. I've never even seen a Mac Pro in there.
Wow.
Never seen one. So that's why I was really surprised. But thankfully that I got it that morning, and then I come home and canceled the other one. So nice. I didn't get two.
Yeah. No.
Well, we'll certainly have to get you
maybe they've watched your show and they just know you're there waiting for it to come out.
Well, I actually filmed that store opening. I was there. This is back a long time ago. I filmed that store, the grand opening of that. It was a mini DV cam or something. It might have been a tape camera. It was a long time ago. I think it was standard def, but I filmed the opening and I put a little video together of the grand opening of that store. Same as Towson. These are the two local to me, Towson, Maryland, and then Columbia, Maryland. Those are the two that are local. But boy, was I glad. I was so ecstatic that morning when I said, I can't believe this. I can't believe my luck.
Our Apple store here was across a parking lot from the Microsoft store. And over the last, I guess it was about 2 years ago, they actually closed the parking lot and built the Apple store right in front of the Microsoft Store. So like now you have to actually look for the Microsoft Store, and the Apple Store is like 10 times bigger. It's kind of interesting.
Well, was anybody at the Microsoft Store? I've seen those stores, but they always seem kind of empty.
Yeah, I mean, there's people in there. They have their gaming. Is it
Right.
Xbox, I guess?
Right.
They have, you can play Xbox in the window with the virtual stuff on. So it does draw a crowd, not a crowd, a few people for that. There's always someone there playing.
Have you?
I mean, when the Surface came out, it was kind of crowded for a little bit.
Right.
But.
No, of course, but not the operating system so much as the peripherals they have. So, have you ever been to New York, like this, to the Apple Store in New York?
No, I haven't been to New York for years and years. So, yeah,
it's an incredible experience. It's right by the park, and all it is above ground is a giant glass cube. And you walk, it's like a whole, I don't know, it might be half a city block or whatever. And you go into this, there's a stairwell, and you go into this glass cube, and you walk down a full story, not even 8 feet like a house, but you go down like a double stairway to get down to the bottom, and the store's actually underneath the sidewalk. But that's pretty incredible. And now, from what I understand, they closed, this is back a while ago. But when I was there to get Apple certified for Final Cut Pro back whenever that was, Apple headquarters in New York, they had the sessions there. But they used to shut the store down for 1 or 2 hours every night to wash the glass.
Wow. That's crazy.
They had glass window washers to actually wash the glass. I guess it was 2 or 3 in the morning. That's when they would do it, but that's what they would wash the glass. And I guess you got to do the inside and the outside. So it's...
How do you motivate yourself long term with that job? Tonight I'm gonna wash the glass.
No,
it must be hard.
When I worked in DC, I was a carpenter, and I did a commercial carpentry, and we'd be up in high rises all the time. And I was watching one day, they were training the window washers to go over the edge.
Oh.
I know. That's what I was saying. I said, no way. But they were training these people to do that first.
I used to rock climb, and the first time I had to rappel, I actually cried. It was so scary. It wasn't even that far up, but I was just like, it's that moment where you go over the edge and put all your weight on the rope. It's just horrible. Ugh.
Or if you go, parachute for the first time, and I'm sure it's the same thing. You're putting all your faith and all your trust in this person.
Yeah, that's right.
I trust physics more. Like, you are going to fall. That's it.
So, looking forward to 2022. Now, one of the things I'm really glad that you talked about was you're going to improve the version of LumaFusion on the Mac. I mean, to me, that's a big deal. It really is, and I really appreciate it. I really appreciate that. What else do we have to look forward to for 2022 that you want to talk about now?
Sure. I mean,
go ahead, Chris.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think Terry mentioned a couple of Multicam will finally come out, and subtitling's coming out. The keyframe easing and animation is big. Another one, which we isn't as big probably for this audience, but is important, is that we are coming out with a version of LumaFusion for Android, and that'll come out sometime in 2022. So that's a really big deal. And then we have a lot of other things that are on the horizon that we're probably not going to talk about now, but we're certainly working hard, to really fill in, as we've talked about before, trying to move farther and farther into the professional space where anybody who wants to edit can use LumaFusion to do almost any workflow. So we're continually filling in any gaps we have to make sure you can always use LumaFusion when you want to do an edit.
So one of the things about working with Android, and when I see, do you need a different set of tech people for that versus the Mac version? That's what I was wondering.
Yeah, absolutely. It's an entirely different type of development. One of the differences there is that Apple has really provided an incredibly powerful framework for audio and video on iOS and Mac, and they're the same on iOS and Mac. So that is shared between the two of them. Android has the components of that, but not as well built out framework. And so we had to have a team that would build out that framework. And so we actually got lucky and found a team. They're actually in Belarus. They're a team called Solbag.
Okay.
And they've got a dedicated team that's working, for us, to do LumaFusion on Android. And they've been doing it. It's definitely a bigger task and, has some more difficulty because of the wide variety of hardware on there that's not as cohesive
Right.
as Apple.
Right.
So those are some of the pain points that we're struggling with, but we feel we're going to have a really, we're going to have the wonderful Android, LumaFusion experience on Android this next year, and it's going to be really great.
Well, I have no doubt that it'll be a good version. I was just curious because my audio app that I had before Logic was a Mark of the Unicorn Digital Performer, and they were Mac only, Mac only, Mac only. Then they came out with the Windows version, and they had the same issue. They have a much bigger support group of people for the Windows version than they have for the Mac version with different mindsets and stuff. So is it going to be feature parity with the?
The initial version will have feature parity with approximately our 2.4 version of LumaFusion,
Okay.
a couple versions back. And there may be even some specific limitations depending on the hardware. And then we'll start working towards bringing that up to, the full set of features that, that the iOS version has. So it'll take a while, but that's certainly our goal.
And please give your Android tech support people a lot of leeway. Give them a lot of time off and stuff to recover, because I'm sure you're going to, well, because like you said, there's so many different phones and platforms and this version and that version. And it's just like versus the Mac, which is, kind of this, people call it a boxed in or walled in version, but that's part of the appeal is you have the tight controls. So any of your tech people that are dealing with that, the phone calls that are taking the phone calls, give them a little bit of extra time off.
All of our employees have here is unlimited time off.
Yep.
And that I'm telling the truth. They really do. That's one of our policies.
Yeah. We've had employees take a month at a time for a trip or something like that, and that's okay, and people take off when a new baby's born, take a couple months, and that's worked out really well for us. We really do find that, by giving that kind of flexibility, it makes employees who really are happy to work for us and really, enjoy what they're doing. And that's a big part of who we are as a team.
So do you have, I don't see any competition to LumaFusion on the Mac platform. I really don't.
Yeah, I don't know. Not really. No. There are other apps out there, but I've seen one or two,
certainly good apps.
Yeah.
But, yeah. Not at our price point. To be honest, there's a Resolve. That's a great app. I think you can get the first iteration of it free or something. But it is just harder to learn than LumaFusion. So
Resolve on the iPad?
No, on Mac.
No, not on the iPad, on the Mac.
Oh yeah. No, I'm talking about the iPad video editing.
On the iPad. No, we're kind of in a spot all of our own, to be honest.
Because I haven't. Yeah.
There are products out there, and there's good editors. It's just that we are, I believe, the only ones that have chosen not to do a subscription.
Well, thank you for that.
Yeah, and those editors still don't have the flexibility of our app. They have some neat features. Some of them have different features, and I think that's great. And it's one of those cases where people can find a tool that they might want to use in addition to LumaFusion, but none of them really have the flexibility and capability that we've had that I think is really built from just how we started things and how we've built LumaFusion from day one.
No, you guys are supercharged. You're NL. You really are. That's what I've seen other apps, and I've said, it looks like iMovie. That's not really any comparison.
We love editing, so that's the difference. I think is that we're not just a collection of people trying to make money. We are actually people that love. On our team, we have many video editors, musicians, artists, and we just all love what we're doing, and I think that just really comes through in the app.
So when I go to the Creative Summit in NAB, I always take my MacBook and I always take my iPad. I take both. Not, there are two different ways of working.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
They really
Yeah.
are, and you can't just take your an app that's running on Mac and then just port it over to iPad and have a great experience. And likewise, you can't take LumaFusion from an iPad and just port it over and have a great experience, which is why, although you can run LumaFusion on the M1 Mac, what we really want to do is rethink those features for Mac so that you do have a great experience that's customized for that platform. Um, they're different, and you can't
They
expect the
are.
same. Yeah.
They absolutely are. And I understand, I'm sure that Apple has, we can call Tim and find out. I'm sure Apple has a touch screen MacBook Pro in the Apple campus somewhere. A couple of them, they're trying things out. But I really don't, with as good as a touchpad is,
Yeah.
I don't really see the necessity to put it out. I don't know how much I would use a touch screen on the MacBook Pro. Sometimes I do touch the screen, like I said. Yeah. But if you look at the iPad Pro with the keyboard, isn't that a touch screen MacBook Pro? Basically, it has an M1 chip and it has USB-C. And
yeah, so, I find a nice differentiation between, working on a Mac when I'm doing development and it feels right with the keyboard. It's more mouse centric. But when I want to go, there's so many things that I do on the iPad. If I'm taking a note, I'll do it on the iPad, not on the desktop. So it creates a nice ecosystem where you can go back and forth depending on what you're doing and where you are, and whether I'm sitting on the couch versus going to my desk. It just has a different feel to it.
Yeah.
Are there any updates?
I carry the iPad everywhere in my house with me. Like, I'm not everywhere, but like if I'm sitting on the couch, I'll have it there so I could look things up. Like even if I'm watching TV, I like to find out about actors or whatever. I look it up on the iPad. I wouldn't necessarily do that on my Mac.
I have a Mac Pro sitting over here, 2019 Mac Pro that I bought, and it's a great machine. Now I got the MacBook Pro, and this is now my new main machine. But when I go to sleep at night, I take my iPad with me.
Yep, that's right.
Because I read. I do, because I read and I watch YouTube videos. Yep. And I take my AirPods Pros with me back there, and I have my pencil back there, and I take that back there because that's where it's appropriate. And when I'm on the airplane, I use my iPad. It's just easier.
I think Apple's created a really good, divergence between the two that gives you the right tool for where you are and what you want to do at the time, and gives you both of those. And I think that's great. Works. Really
and the lack of complexity, I think, helped them as well as us. Just having some limitations makes you think harder about how to make things feel right, and it does simplify and create a better experience.
Absolutely. So you came out with the FCPX XML export last December?
That's probably right. I feel like it's even longer than that, but okay.
Maybe it was 2 Decembers ago. It was 2 Decembers ago because Terry, I was talking with you at the Creative Summit, and we were talking with one of my friends, Final Cut Pro community. He ended up buying LumaFusion then, and you were talking about it coming out before Christmas. So that must have been 2 years ago. So are there anything else you can do with that? Is there anything, more specifically, more advanced for the Final Cut Pro export, or is it pretty well?
We have a set of features we want to do for that as well. There's some things we're still not bringing across, like full titles we're doing as images and things like that we will over time continue to advance. And with new features coming out like Multicam, we intend to have those be exportable as well. So it is an evolving feature.
Okay. That's what I was wondering. It is evolving. So the other thing is, you had, what version of LumaFusion had the stability plugin stabilizer?
I think that came out a late 2 point something. It was 2.5, I think, actually, that we brought in the stabilizer.
Is anything else coming in plugins? I'm sure some.
We're certainly talking to a lot of companies, and we're actually looking at, I've got one on my team looking at different plugin architectures that we could do to make that easier. It's still different on iPad because you can't just have separate plugins, but we are working with companies to integrate their technologies into LumaFusion. And so that is something I hope we'll see more of in the future.
So that
So
came
Apple
from
does have the audio architecture for audio plugins, so that we support. You know that.
is that audio units.
Yeah, audio
Mm-hmm.
units. And we did
Yeah.
re-add
So you can
support.
run
We had,
those.
yeah, we had taken out support early on because of some problems, but we finally got the chance to go back and do it right. And it's working really well. There's still a few, with so many plugins, you create a whole new set of support there as well. But
Right.
yeah, but we're working through those, and our next update will have some fixes for certain audio plugins to make that even better. But users are already taking advantage of that quite heavily, and it's working out nicely.
So that was from Core Melt from my friend Roger.
Yeah, Core Melt. We love
Yes.
Core Melt, and they have a lot of other technologies that we're certainly looking into as well. Seeing if we can bring them into LumaFusion in the future.
Yeah, yeah, and that one was included with the update.
Yep. Yeah, that was included free. That was and a lot of that was one of our top asked for features, and so we were really happy to get that out.
So when it was stabilization was an asked for feature, so it was more efficient or better to use a plugin rather than develop it in-house.
Yeah,
We did develop it first, didn't we?
yeah, we had done a version in house, but we weren't really happy with the results at that point. And,
Okay.
talking, and when we'd actually, I think, I mostly spent time talking to Roger at the FCP Creative Summit, and they talked about the fact that they could port that over to iOS pretty easily, and we realized, in this case, we'd rather have somebody who's focused on specifically that feature, which is a fairly advanced feature and needs some dedication to it. And so we decided to integrate that rather than try to do it and maintain it ourselves at that point.
Now, one of the other questions I get constantly, I'm going to bring up, how much money has Apple offered you guys to buy LumaFusion? People ask me all the time.
We'd go to jail if we said.
Oh, you can't talk about it. You're holding out for a lot of money, I'm telling you.
Yeah, sure.
So one of the things that, I do a comparison with Logic and Final Cut sometimes. And I know it's not a one-to-one comparison since Logic's audio program. But for audio, they've had a notes feature in Logic that's incorporated into the window, and you can do notes, type in notes per track or per project. Mm-hmm. And I wanted that for Final Cut because right now, if you have a PDF and you're copying, stuff, or you have a text document or a Word document, you're copying titles, you got to, you click on Final Cut and the window disappears behind it and stuff. Oh. So our friends just came out with a plugin for that, or not a plugin. It's a, what do they call those things in Final Cut? It's not a plugin, but they came out with an intelligent assistant. It's a $4.99 app. You can now open up, it's an extension. You can now open up text documents, PDFs, Word documents in Final Cut. Finally, you can do that after 11 years. You can open up a document. So Apple buy that from them and incorporate it into Final Cut, right?
Yeah.
Just it's $4.99.
Reminds me of that idea I had before we did LumaFusion, Chris. I had an idea about actually being able to integrate extra data to and attach it to your videos, actually, but we never followed that. Yeah. I think I was I might have been pregnant at the time, so I think I wasn't necessarily thinking straight.
Exactly. That's a good excuse as any.
Yeah.
So, Terri, do you do the editing on LumaFusion? I know you do tutorials right now.
Yeah. So if we edit in-house anything, it's always on LumaFusion. We don't use anything else, and we don't feel we're missing anything by doing that either.
No, of course. I guess the question I had, are you doing any other editing besides tutorials with LumaFusion? Are you doing anything?
Oh, me personally?
Yeah, you personally.
So my son, as I said, earlier, he's an avid shooter. He shoots everything. I mean, everything. I had to get a separate library for him because my library was cluttered with every store we went to, everything.
Sure.
So, but we do like to edit together stories of his. So he'll make up a story. I help him shoot it. We do stop motion and different time lapse things, and then put it together. So, I mean, most of the stuff I do nowadays is either work related for LumaTouch, or it's just personal. And then, you know, unfortunately, in families, there's always someone dying. So I've done, you know, I'm the one that does the funeral videos. So.
The little memorial videos.
Yeah, but it's not. Yeah, I frankly don't have time to do anything besides the LumaTouch and my personal
That's what I was
life
wondering.
now.
So stop motion is a whole other level of patience. Yeah. I really like when I see the stop motion and stuff that people do those videos, but it's just amazing how much time each one of those frames has to be.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I'm
But
too
kids,
impatient.
they love that, man.
Yeah.
They'll sit and do that all afternoon with their little clay figures. It's great.
And they spend 5 hours and they get 5 seconds.
That's right. Yeah.
5 seconds at 30 frames per second or whatever video.
Yeah, I mean, and Liam, he'll do a bunch of stop motion, and then he'll incorporate some video with it. So I think kids are not limited by the rules that we adhere to. You know, like we don't like mixing things up. We're doing this way, and we're going to use this technique, and it'll look weird if we don't. And they do whatever they want, and you know, they use sound effects from Storyblocks and music. And in fact, when he hums music in the car, it's usually, if you ask him what kind of music he likes techno, horror, and rock, or some combination of Storyblocks filters that we have.
Well,
so when he's humming music in the car, it's Storyblocks.
Let's talk about the Storyblocks a bit. Talk about that. That's something available inside LumaFusion. And what exactly is that?
That's a whole stock library. It has music, sound effects, backgrounds, motion backgrounds, and videos. And one of the things that's interesting about Storyblocks is they've put in some effort into making sure that they get content from various ethnic groups and communities, so that the content isn't all your standard, you know, white person on, you know, with perfect hair. So I really like the variety of media you can get on Storyblocks, and their music isn't bad. I find something I like through there, and sound effects are fun. And this is just this is something we subscribe to as a company, as the right to license that to our users. And then our users subscribe from us for a discounted price from what they would subscribe to if they went to the Storyblocks website. It's way cheaper through LumaFusion. But then there's copyright. It's royalty free. And if you do encounter, as you said, a copyright, because loops cause copyright infringement,
absolutely,
even though it's
absolutely
legal. There's right in our app and the ability to dispute that. You just press the dispute this in the info panel.
Wait a minute.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. That's fantastic.
And
that's something I want Final Cut to have. I want Final Cut to steal that from you.
Yeah, in fact, one of the nice things that Storyblocks added was not only is there the in-app option to dispute it manually, but there's also, when you upload to YouTube with any of their content, we send out a special whitelist request that will automatically dispute the claim within 30 minutes on your YouTube channel. And then if for some reason that fails, then you can use the dispute form, and usually it'll be resolved within 72 hours. But that first line of defense has really cut down on problems we had in the past, where within 30 minutes it's automatically handled without any user interaction. That's really incredible.
Now, who was the genius that thought of that?
That was Storyblocks. They did that. I assume that's a feature that's out there, but it's something that they made available to us, and it was definitely a wonderful addition, and has definitely made life easier for us.
I don't think any other NLE has that built in like that.
Probably not built in. No.
That's what I mean. Built into the app. You can just press a button and dispute it. That's fantastic. What a great feature that is. Apple, listen, steal that.
I mean, it can still happen, that
Sure.
but it cut way back on disputes. And so, and if it still does happen, then then you contact us at support, and we have a direct line to the right person at Storyblocks, and they handle it right away. So it's not disastrous anymore.
Yeah, it's just aggravating more than anything.
Oh yeah.
The
whole system is crazy, and I hope it changes over time, but it's what we're working with for now. And
No,
we're doing the best we can to make it easier. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we're on Facebook, we're on YouTube Live, we're on Twitter, and we're on Twitch TV right now live. So we're not going to get any copyright disputes because my music at the beginning is mine. I have it copywritten, whatever. I can dispute that. But the idea of pushing a button to challenge a dispute is just phenomenal. Yeah. I never even thought about that. That's really, really good. I mean, built into the NLE. Yeah. It is.
Yeah, it's in the info panel. If someone's looking for it, you just open that song in the info panel and press the button at the bottom of the info panel.
Fantastic. What haven't we covered?
We've covered a lot.
Gosh, I think we've had a nice visit.
No, I read about the Android thing a couple weeks ago. I guess I first saw the splash about it. I wasn't sure if it was out yet or not. So that's a big deal. But the fact that you're working, to be honest with you, there's two things that have really struck me this time. Number one is that what we just talked about, the push button challenge to a copyright strike, and number two is that you're working specifically on an improved version to run on the M1 Max.
Yeah. It'll be on any Mac, any Mac.
Oh yeah, in fact, right? It'll actually be run on Intel Macs as well. So yeah.
Oh, it will.
Yeah. It's a Catalyst version that we're developing, so it'll run on both M1 and Intel Macs. Yeah. Well,
that's even another further step up. I didn't realize it would run on the Intel version. I mean, it seems like the iPad's on M1, the Mac's on the M1. It would be easier to port that over, but that's phenomenal. And now
that's the M1 version that we have, and it was fairly easy, I believe.
Yeah, that took nothing. We just turned on a flag in the store, but that's why when we decided to do it more fully Mac, we went with Mac Catalyst, which gives us the additional ability to run on Intel Macs as well, and so that's one of the advantages of it. In addition,
and other benefits like different codecs and stuff, isn't it true?
Yeah, it'll actually use any of the Pro codecs that are installed on your system, and it just gives us more access to all of the Mac interface capabilities and that we didn't have with the iPad version that was more, completely iPad sandboxed. So yeah.
Right. So we've covered everything.
I think
so.
I don't need to call Tim. We're good.
Not today.
You can call him. Go ahead.
You want me to call him?
Yeah, tell him thank you.
I'll call him on the next show.
All right.
And I'll give him your regards, Mr.
Yes.
So I never met Steve Jobs when he was alive, although I missed one opportunity, a big opportunity. The very first Apple store in the United States was in Virginia, and Steve Jobs showed up there.
Wow.
And I was working in D.C., debating should I go to the opening or not, and boy, Steve Jobs showed up there. I did meet Steve Wozniak. We have a Maryland Apple Core group that was just dedicated to Apple users and stuff, and they had a 25th anniversary, and he was the guest speaker. So I did get to meet him,
nice.
but not Steve Jobs.
That's pretty cool.
Very cool.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for having us on, Richard.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. You have a whole slot of, I have a whole slot of places you can fit in, going forward. So absolutely, if you have anything else going on, for 2022, is it going to be just like a LumaFusion update that's going to include the
it'll be a universal. It's a universal app, so if you've purchased it anywhere, it'll be available on both, iPad, iPhone, and Mac. Yep.
So that'd be great. That'll be a nice little feature for us dedicated Mac users.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So anyway, I'm going to pull up the web page. Luma-touch.com is where you can get all the information. LumaFusion available on the App Store. $29.99. I think the FCPXML add-on is $19.99.
That's correct. Yes.
It's a steal. Both of them, they really are. I mean, there's this, for all the things you can do, you have built-in stabilization from CoreMount that's included. You can now support audio unit plugins, which is a fantastic things for the iPad. I'm so used to the Mac, and I'm used to thinking about the iPad being, not as powerful, but with your app, it's just as powerful. Absolutely. It's amazing.
Yeah. Thank you.
Absolutely. So do we miss anything? We're good?
I think we're good.
I don't think so. It looks like it's time for me to pick up my son at school.
Oh, he can wait. He can wait. He can play some basketball out in the yard or whatever. So
I would be a bad mother.
No, you're very good. So on Twitter, it's at LumaTouch, right?
That's correct.
No dash.
No dash. Yeah.
But the website, luma-touch.com.
Yeah, you can actually even get to the website with just lumatouch.com without a dash as well. So,
Oh, you can?
yeah, we finally got that. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's fantastic. I sure appreciate both of you coming on. And, we've got one thing here. This is an old, from my childhood for Christmas. This is like an old leather, I don't know, was it a dog collar? What the heck it was? I have no idea.
You could put it on your reindeer or something so that they, jingle when they.
That's exactly right. It was something. Oh, here's this also. I love these things. These are from my childhood. These are little twirly things that twirl on a Christmas tree. You put a light underneath, and the heat rising from the light makes that spin around. Yeah, and this is probably from the 1950s.
Nice.
Wow.
And it still works.
I like that.
And it still works. We have a bunch of these from my childhood.
You're a Christmas lover then, huh?
Yeah, I like Christmas. Yeah, Christmas. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Everything about it, New Year's, the whole 9 yards.
Yep.
So
nice.
Looking forward to 2022 and see what tricks you guys have up your sleeves. Tricks and surprises for everybody.
Oh, thank you. You too. I mean, I'm sure we'll be watching you and enjoying your show. So
yeah, I talk about your show I talk about LumaFusion all the time on my show.
Wonderful.
I do. I do. Anytime, we talk about it all the time because that's why you're on. Now, I'm not going to have you on when you release the Android version. There's no sense in that, right?
That's okay. We understand.
No, I'm just teasing. Of course, when you come on, you can talk about the Android version. That's
There'll
fine.
be other things.
Don't make a Microsoft version, please.
Okay. We'll see. We'll keep that in mind.
Yes, we will keep that in mind.
Thanks so much. I sure appreciate it.